Konnichiwa. Today we're talking about compound interest. So first, make sure you have this handout, and second, make sure you've already watched the notes from yesterday because it'll really help you out. So really, compound interest is just a special type of exponential formula. And here's our formula for it. A equals P times 1 plus R over N to the NT. Well, this means absolutely nothing until you know what all these letters mean. So let's start labeling some letters. We're going to start on the far right. T is easy to remember because it is time. And that's going to be in years specifically. Okay, N, we see N twice in this equation. And that's the number of times your interest is compounded per year. Right, then we see this R. That R is your interest rate. And it's really, really, really important that you've got to make that interest rate into a decimal. If you're not sure how to do that, I'm going to try. Hopefully I'll be able to do this. I should have a link that should pop up to show you a short video on how to change your interest rate from a percent to a decimal. All right, this is obviously the number 1. That should not be confusing. This P is the original amount. And the reason why we use P for that original amount is because if you go into finances and whatnot, money, if you go work for a bank, they're going to call that the principal. So no, not the person. Principal means what you start off with. And then finally, A, that is the balance you have after so many years. So balance after T years, since here's our T. All right, there's one thing I need to point out is our N, notice how it's the number of times compounded per year. So the problem might not say, oh, it's compounded 12 times a year. Instead, it might say it's compounded monthly, or instead of saying it's compounded 365 times a year, it'll say it's compounded daily. So it's really helpful to know what those words would mean, like what word would mean how many N's. So I'm going to make a little table to the side. So we're going to have a word and what that would mean for our N. So if it says daily, that means your N is going to be 365 because there's 365 days per year. Okay, if it says weekly, there are 52 weeks per year. So your N will be 52 if you see weekly. Okay, monthly is next. So you just got to ask yourself, how many months are there in a year? Well, I hope you know there are 12. Then we could have quarterly. And you ask yourself, how many quarters are in a dollar? 4. So quarterly means 4 times a year. If you see bi-yearly, the prefix bi means 2. So if you ever bisect something, it means cut it in 2. And finally, you could have yearly. Sorry, I kind of ran out of room, didn't I? And yearly means your N is 1. So that's really helpful to know what those words would mean for your N. We're going to jump right into a problem now. All right. We got someone just graduated from high school. They want to invest $500 over 8 years. There are 4 different certificates of deposits, which if you go to a bank, they'll just call them CDs. They have no fees attached. Wow, that's amazing. Trust me, I've had a CD before. We need to label which formula matches up with the description. So here's what's going to be helpful. CD earning 2.6% interest. We cannot put 2.6 as it is into our problem. We need to take that interest, which remember, that's our R, we need to put it into a decimal. So instead of having percent, 2.6% is the same as 0.026. It's compounded daily. So that means n equals, if we look back up here, if it's daily, n equals 365. Okay, if we have 1.3% interest, ask yourself, what would the decimal be for that? Should be 0.013. Compounded monthly, what is n if we're talking monthly? Look at your chart right up here. N would be 12. Okay, 2.6 interest we just said is 0.026. Compounded monthly, we just said n would be 12. And then 1.3 we said is percent is 0.013. And 8 times per year just tells us that n is 8. Okay, so now we need to match these up with these. So this one, this shows our R. So R is 0.026 for A and C. The difference is how often it's compounded. So daily is 365, n would be 12 here. So here we show n is 12. That matches up with C, where interest is 0.026 and n is 12. Okay, here we have an interest of 0.013, which is the same as 1.3%. So that's either B or D. And let's look at how many times it's compounded. 12 times per year, so n is 12. Well, that's got to be B. Okay, this one shows that R is 0.026 and n is 365. So is that A or D? Well, that's got to be A. And that means this one should be D. 1.3%, 8 times per year. Yep, we got it. Okay, let's take it from a word problem and write an equation for it. Okay, we start with $17,000. Woo, that's a lot. Invested at 3%, compounded annually. So I'm going to go ahead and make a note to myself. N will equal what if we're talking about annually? Well, annually is the same as yearly. Maybe that'll help you. For yearly, n equals 1. And we want to know the balance after 6 years. So before we can answer this question, we got to set up a model to get this. So we got A equals. So we're looking back at the top. Look at this on your paper. Okay, we need to start with our principal, our original amount. So how much did we start off with? We started off with $17,000. So that's the number we need right here. Okay, then we need 1 plus R over N. Well, our R is 3%, which if we put that into a decimal is 0.03. So we need 0.03 over N. We said N is 1. And that's all over to the NT. So all over, or sorry, not all over. To the NT power. N is 1 times T. There's our equation. This will tell us how much money we have. Well, we want to know the balance after 6 years. So all we have to do is replace T with 6. So here's what you type in your calculator. Get your handy dandy calculator out. Da, da, da. We want a new document. No, we don't want to save. We need a calculator. So I'm going to start with the 17,000. Then write it exactly like we have it. 1 plus, and remember, if we want to do a fraction like this, hit Control, then divide. Up top we need 0.03, and the bottom we need 1. And then to do that power, that little exponent, make sure to click on the caret. And we want 1 times T, but we know T needs to be 6. So I'm going to put in a 6. So this is what it should look like. Then just hit enter. All right, there's our answer right there. After 6 years, she has, oops, writing the wrong thing. After 6 years, she has this amount, which is $20,298.9. But whenever you're talking about money, we need another digit after the decimal, so 0.90. So if I were you, I would write this on our paper. Not only write our answer, but I'd write how we got this. So we got that by just rewriting our equation. But instead of t, we replaced t with 6. And that's how we got that answer. Okay, see if you can write an equation for this and see if you can, then you're going to plug in 8 for t. See what you get. Let me know when you've done this number 3. I'll check it for you, see if we have any confusion. All right, get to it. Let me know where you're confused, where you're lost, how I can help.